All right, let's take a look at that rescue in Adrienne, Turkey, without edits as it happened. You'll hear my colleague Heather Hiscox on air with Briar Stewart as the CBC News crew captured the moment.
We've been here for the last couple of hours as these incredible crew members have been reaching a woman who has been trapped in the rubble under a door or in some sort of a pocket where she has done pretty well physically since the earthquake early in the morning on Monday. But obviously in that destruction, it's been very challenging to get to her. So as Briar brings us what's happening, I'll give you just a little bit of background that we've had from earlier conversations. They had thought they'd be able to... Oh, let's listen.
This is the moment, Heather.
You're watching live coverage. God is great. Briar, this is extraordinary. The hugs from the crew members, the elation.
Some medical attention. They had an oxygen mask there.
Okay.
And once...
Coming this way, probably. Probably coming.
So I'm just hearing some discussion that they will be probably taking the stretcher this way. But the elation among the team members.
There are so many rescuers involved in this.
And they are euphoric at having extracted this woman. Now, we're not seeing the stretcher, but you can see their reaction after those hours of painstaking work. What does it look like, Briar? We'll be able to see that as they come by you, do you think, your location?
Yeah, they brought her out, and it's hard to see because they're actually kind of huddled over her. She's on the ground on the stretcher and doing some, kind of basic stabilization. We know, oh, here she comes down here. Again, just an incredible moment. This happened Monday. She's been in that building for days, freezing cold. She could hear rescuers, obviously, trying to get to her, and now she has been freed. The latest survivor of this earthquake. Really just a miraculous thing to see.
And just to look at her there, Briar, obviously they're covering her up, and we want to be careful and sensitive to that, but her eyes open and blinking, so conscious as she's taken to an ambulance to receive medical attention. But there, as you say, there is a moment of joy and hope for the country, which is seeing so much sadness and devastation and death. And this will be something to seize on this day 5. More than 100 hours in that rubble, and a woman pulled live from that scene. And you've been watching it live with us on CBC News Network. And Briar, we can't underestimate or under stress the role of Canada's volunteers in that. The Burnaby Urban Search and Rescue Team playing critical roles in bringing that woman out. Let's underline that once again.
Yes, and actually, we'll talk a little bit about that. Sorry, I am having a hard time hearing you because it is a little chaotic here. Here, we're going to just... I think they were all trying to get a photo of themselves after the rescue. So we want to get out of the way. We don't want to be in the photo. Dimitri and I are going to move over here. Excuse me. Sorry. We're just going to come over here and join our Canadians. Thank you. Very, very good work. Thank you. Good work, everybody.
Well, some extraordinary live television from this morning, Canadian time, and as Heather Hiscox said, a moment of joy, and in a place that hasn't had a lot of joy. Let's bring in two of our correspondents now. Briar Stewart is in Gaziantep, Turkey, and Chris Brown, and we saw his remarkable story earlier in the hour as well, and he's in Adana. Welcome to both of you. And Briar, let me start with what you witnessed earlier today, and you've had some time to reflect on it. As you look back, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, obviously, Ian, there's the raw emotion of the moment, but the other thing that really strikes me is just what a massive operation this is. I mean, there were dozens of workers and volunteers there just at that one site, just focused on that one person. And you have so many buildings in this city alone that need to be searched still, that need that kind of manpower, that, kind of tools and the equipment there. And it really is just such a big job. And as we have said, the window is really closing on when they think they can find survivors. And even though they have pulled a lot of people out over the last 24 hours, they do really think that this is a race against time at this point. And there is just so many workers and equipment needed for this.
And Briar, for family members who are obviously so worried, so frustrated, some of that frustration is spilling out.
Absolutely. In fact, just when we were at that site there, we were talking to the rescuers after that woman had been brought out, and there was a family member on the street who was very upset. She was yelling, and she was angry in part because she thought rescuers should have been there earlier. We had heard that there were other people in the building and that they had been trying to bring it to the attention of these emergency crews earlier in the week. So you do have just a lot of desperate people who really wanted to see, the professionals and all of the equipment early on. I mean, that being said, obviously this is a really massive job, but we have seen people in the very early days up there on those piles themselves, going through it with their hands, trying to move heavy pieces just to be able to try to get to their loved ones.
Chris, in your story tonight, you spoke to a man desperately searching for his mother. As you've been covering the aftermath of the quake, what stands out to you?
Well, Ian, the quake itself was obviously the original catastrophe, but that spawned so many more crises that just roll out from it and affect everyone who isn't dead, is caught up in this. I mean, where we were today, Antakya, this is a place I've never seen anything like it. As I said, when we drove around, we couldn't really see any buildings that you would ever want to live in. So all the sewer's gone, all the electricity's gone. There were very few public toilets, no place for people to go. I mean, just imagine the kind of health problems they're going to be having very, very shortly with that kind of a situation. There's garbage everywhere. So, it's awful enough just to lose your house. But then imagine that this is all you've got left with afterwards. When I was talking to one woman, she survived. She was up on her 5th story in her apartment, was stuck amongst the cement, amongst the rebar for 30 minutes, not long, managed to get out, but all she was wearing was literally what she was in bed with at the time, which was like her nightgown and her bare feet. And that's it. That's all she left with.
And Chris, what sort of role is there for other countries, for Canada, for, the sort of outside forces here?
Well, you certainly do see now a lot of these international response teams. At one site today, there was a Bosnian team hard at work. But, as Briar alluded to, hope is, there's not much of it left, right? I mean, people are angry now. They're upset, they're frustrated. One of the volunteers today said there's no government here. It's kind of people making stuff up as they go. So when everything's been destroyed, there's a lot of fury that kind of fills that void. And I think that's going to be a real challenge as this 72-hour window closes, as there really is no more hope for finding people in these pancake buildings. The anger is really going to increase.
Well, Briar, let's go back to you. We have less than a minute, but what do you see over the next few days in terms of even the story that you're hoping to cover?
Well, as Chris talked about, just what is left after all of this. I mean, we have been watching that death count climb so high, and the times that we've been driving around in these cities, I just think, what is it going to be at when the recovery mission is done, when all of this is cleaned up? Because this is such a huge disaster, Ian, that it is really hard to put into words when we're talking about the scale of destruction. And also just another immediate safety concern is the stability of all these buildings. After that rescue today, we got out to the street and we weren't out there 10 seconds when we heard a big boom. We turned around and there was a huge cloud of dust a couple of blocks away. And it was because an apartment building that was standing there collapsed. And people were in tents camping nearby. So that's another big safety concern over the next little while.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. As stunning as the death toll is, that is only a part of this disaster that you're seeing and covering each day. I know They've been long days and nights for both of you, and we really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.